Good morning. Welcome to everybody. Welcome to this keynote session where we will focus on one of the themes of our conference, the enable pillar. My name is Kirsten Boelt. I'm Danish. I am representing the Danish Library Association, and I am an IFLA governing board member. I'm very pleased to stand here with you today to be part of this magnificent conference. And with these keynote sessions, we are working to provide you the opportunity, or maybe the basis, of thinking big, of being ambitious, thinking ambitious. We want you to be able to leave this session with a new sense of what is possible for our institutions, for our field, and the energy and ideas to get and then maybe implement them into your own work, into your own career. Because libraries, our collections, our resources, and vitally, our people, have this extraordinary potential to make things happen, to give users the possibility and the means to learn, to grow, to develop. Libraries are great enabler in our societies. We, the libraries, are able to make a difference in so many ways. And now today, to hear about a particularly inspiring example of how a library project can serve to enable, I'm very happy to welcome Helen Shenton, standing right here. Helen is working as a librarian at the Trinity College here in Dublin. Helen is an experienced senior leader who has held positions of increasing strategic importance in world-class cultural, educational and memory organizations in the United Kingdom, in the United States, and here in Ireland. She took up the role of librarian and archivist at Trinity College Dublin in May 2014. Prior to this, she was executive director of Harvard Library. Yes. The role saw her bring together 73 individual libraries in areas such as digitization, accessibility, collections, and content development, and record management. Prior to this, she managed world-renowned collections through positions at the British Library and the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. What a career, yeah. Helen is passionate about power of collections and value of information in people's lives. Understanding the impact of technology, she has created approaches to stewardship addressing the physical and digital future of collections and content, and has been involved with World Heritage projects such as the virtual reunification of the earliest New Testament. Today, as trailed, she is going to be talking about one of the biggest and most exciting projects in the library world at this moment. The conservation and renovation of the library at Trinity College, Dublin, and the creation of its virtual library, and how it is serving to engage and enable communities. I am so pleased to welcome you, Helen. And now, Helen Shenton, the floor is yours. Please applaud.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for that generous introduction, and thank you very much for the organizers from IFLA for inviting me to give this talk. So I'm going to talk about the intertwined digital and cultural heritage through the perspective of Trinity College Dublin. So I'll give a little bit of context of where we are sitting in Dublin. Then I'll talk about the Old Library Redevelopment Project, Secondly, the Virtual Trinity Library, which we're doing in parallel, and make a couple of observations at the end. So, you will know that you are in a city of literature. You just look down in the sidewalk, and there are quotes from literature. You'll see James Joyce and Oscar Wilde and so on. And I can attest that Dublin is a magnificent city of libraries. So here we are. We are just about over here. And then on the other side of the Liffey, about 10 minutes away, in a city of libraries, there's my library, the Library of Trinity College Dublin. Then we have the National Library of Ireland, who have magnificent displays of W.B. Yeats and Seamus Heaney. Then we have Chester Beatty Library, a fantastic world-class displays, particularly around of world religion. Then an absolute jewel in the crown, the beautiful gem of Marsh's Library, the earliest public library in Dublin, 1707. Then a very interesting new development, the Molly of the Museum of Literature of Ireland, which is a collaboration between University College Dublin and the National Library predicated on Joyce. Then we have Dublin City Library, who they led the drive to Dublin becoming only the 4th UNESCO City of Literature. Then we have a stellar new building at the Royal College of Surgeons, well worth a visit. I have building envy when I visit there. Then another jewel, the Royal Irish Academy, home to the Cathach, thought to be the earliest Irish language. Then the National Archives in their new location, the original, which was about a kilometre from here, was blown up in 1922. And then we have the Edward Worth Library, which a fantastic medical library with wonderful early printed collections. So that is where you are, all within walking distance. So I'm now going to talk a little bit about the Old Library Redevelopment Project. And to give you your bearings, we're just up about here. And so this is about a 15-minute walk away, the beautiful city centre campus of Trinity College Dublin. It's a lovely oasis, but I would draw your attention to this ring road that goes around the outside, which I'll come on to. So this is the complex of libraries. You've got here, this is the old library, a high point of Enlightenment architecture. But then we have a suite of 20th century libraries, including this one, which is the Berkeley Library, a high point of modernist architecture. Some people say it's the most important modern building, or 20th century building in Ireland. So the library itself was founded in 1592 by Queen Elizabeth I. And then, as with many libraries, and university libraries in particular, it was built up through donations through the 17th century. Then, in the 18th century, was the construction of what is now the old library, but was obviously then the new library. A major event was in 1801 when Trinity College Dublin became the UK, copyright library, and remains to this day the UK copyright library. So with the British Library, the National Libraries of Wales and Scotland, Oxford and Cambridge, Trinity is the copyright library for UK publications on behalf of the island of Ireland. Then we had a suite of construction through the 20th century. Very much, Trinity has always been very, very innovative. And then we've become a 21st century library. So very much in the digital age, we're part of a phenomenal consortium, the Irish Research e-Library. We are a research-intensive university in the top 100 QS rankings, 14,000 undergrads, 6,000 postgrads. We have the Book of Kells is a UNESCO Memory of the World item. Obviously, we're a major visitor attraction. We are UK and Irish legal deposit. In terms of UK electronic legal deposit, we just realized that the 4 nations and the 6 libraries have created a 7th transnational electronic library on a scale that we were told couldn't be done. And then we have 6.5 million volumes, a phenomenal collection of medieval manuscripts, e-books, e-journals, and many million of UK websites. So, founded in 1592, right at the center there was a monastery. And why that's relevant is because when we're doing our archaeological works for the Old Library Redevelopment Project, there is a possibility we'll find human remains. So far, we've only found animal remains. And this is the new college library, completed in 1732. I draw your attention to two issues. Firstly, it had a flat roof. And secondly, on the ground floor, that was originally open. The long room, the very famous reading room, is on the first floor, this being island. Obviously, we have a lot of damp. Also, there's a lot of wells and streams underneath Trinity. But that was originally open. This is it today. And you can see that the ground floor has been filled in. And here we have, that's the entrance to our visitor, where our visitors enter at the moment. So, let's go inside. I should say that there are tours on Friday, and we've also arranged for a number of subsidized tickets for Friday visits. So our visitors arrive. They come into the long room. They stop dead in their tracks. They go, wow. They drop their voices. They comment on the smell. And then they take in the soaring arch. This was, the barrel-vaulted roof was put in the 19th century, partly because of a problem with the roof, but also, once we became a copyright library, we were full from that day onwards. And we needed more storage, so the galleries then were filled up with shelves. As with most university libraries, we built up from donations, and here you can see Usuriana, so this is Archbishop Usher, 10,000 theological volumes in the same place as where they were donated in the 17th century. And then up at the top, we still have 19th century legal deposit material. As we come down the long room, you probably know that Ireland is in the decade of commemoration, and here we have one of the few remaining proclamations of the state from 1916, which was pasted up outside of the General Post Office. It's like the Declaration of Independence in some ways. One of the features of the long room are the sculptures. You'll notice all these busts. Here we had classical writers, and then here's Dean Swift, who was an alum of Trinity. You will notice also that they're all men, and on my watch, we have commissioned the first women. And then there's Trinity alums, such as William Rowan Hamilton, the scientist. Extremely importantly, in the middle of the long room is the very symbol of the nation. This is the Brian Boru harp. Every single, the symbol of Ireland that you see everywhere of the nation is taken from this harp, and the other way around, it's Guinness. Then, if we go into one of the alcoves, where all that particulate pollution from all those, the traffic is coming through those windows and landing on the books. All the books there with tape mean that they need conservation. We have no environmental control. So therefore, to look after this collection, the best thing that we can do is to introduce environmental control, temperature, and humidity. So, many people say it is the most beautiful room in Ireland. I contest that it's the most recognized interior in Ireland, but it's much more than just a building. We call it the nation's front room because on behalf of the government, on behalf of the Department of Foreign Affairs and the Taoiseach's office, the Prime Minister's office, we warmly welcome, every visiting head of state and global leader. This was when Queen Elizabeth II came to Ireland 11 years ago. This was a really significant moment, the first time that a reigning monarch had come to Ireland since the creation of the Republic. And even on my watch, I've welcomed Joe Biden twice. Once when he was vice president, and then he came as a private citizen, and he was quoting, when that photograph was taken, he was quoting Seamus Heaney's Republic of Conscience. But it's more than just being the nation's front room. I'm a huge believer in the soft power of cultural diplomacy and the power that libraries and memory institutions can play. And these are examples of that. It's obviously also the home to the absolutely exquisite Book of Kells. I could speak forever about the Book of Kells. It is sublime. James Joyce says it's the most Irish thing we have. And he talks about the sweep of the illumination across the pages as mirroring the chapters of Ulysses. And I couldn't resist showing you this. It must look spectacular. So we've done a lot of pigment analysis. And the blue, for example, people thought was lapis lazuli from Afghanistan. No, it's woad, which is a plant from Scotland, which does support perhaps that the Book of Kells was created in Iona, and then it came over during the Viking raids for safekeeping. And for all of its vibrancy, there is no gold. And the yellow is, in fact, yellow arsenic, which is orpiment. And this little fella it's about this big, absolutely tiny. The artistry is absolutely staggering. Then the old library itself, really importantly, it is a working library. All of those 750,000 unique and distinct collection items are all used. They're used by our community and they're used by international scholars. Of our Centre for Advanced Humanities, 40% of all of our visiting fellows come specifically to use the collections. So we not only have all the particulate pollution coming in from being an inner-city ring road, but also we've done dirt and dust studies and know that, in fact, because we have such a large number of visitors, they also slough a lot of fibre, and that is all adding to the conservation issues for our collections. We welcome hundreds of thousands of visitors a year. We're currently Dublin's second most visited destination. Guinness is the first. And also, we're Ireland's fifth biggest paid attraction. The income goes to the academic enterprise. We need this income. It pays for PhDs, about 95 PhDs, and it also pays for new blood of professors. So, the Old Library Redevelopment Project, the key objective is to conserve the building into its 4th century. We want to do this once, we're not doing this again this century. And by conserving the building itself, we're thereby conserving and protecting the unique research collections that are within for future generations. We are going to introduce sustainable environmental controls. This is a real challenge, because at the moment, actually, our energy costs are very low because we've got very little control. So we're doing conservation heating. We're being as flexible as we can with the environmental parameters. We're having heat pump source. But when I feel really, particularly when I think about Mary Robinson, oh my goodness, are we attaining her tenfold challenge? The architects say to me, actually, Helen, the most sustainable thing you can do is to reuse a building because of all the sunk energy costs in that creation of that building. We have to elevate and improve the fire prevention and the fire suppression systems. In your mind's eye, think of that searing image of the wooden spire of Notre Dame Cathedral on fire on the Parisian horizon, and when it fell down. we have to improve the fire prevention in the old library. And as an aside, Notre Dame was spending €6 million a year on maintenance. It's currently costing €825 million to conserve what's left, let alone what has already been irreplaceably lost. Because the long room was a reading room, we wanted to reprise a reading room actually within the old library. So we're creating on the ground floor what will be an absolutely inspirational research collection study center for our students and researchers. We're creating a new Book of Kells exhibition, but placing the Book of Kells very much in an international context. What was happening on the Silk Road at the same time as the Book of Kells and so on. We're enhancing the visitor facilities, so even something like having cloakrooms so people can take off their coats, particularly in winter, to minimize the amount of fibers and so on. And importantly, we're also creating rotating displays to showcase our students' research, our researchers' research, and also to show more of our phenomenal collections. So those are the objectives, but we also have a background philosophy. This is all around long-termism, deeply unfashionable, but this is about playing the long game. We only want to do this once for the next century. It's about creating a legacy. There's lots of elements where we're looking to leave a legacy for the university, whether it's disability access or whether it's we've conserved other buildings. And it's around continuity, continuity of access during construction. And we want to really, really celebrate and reprise the architectural glory of this fantastic building and use every cubic centimeter to its best. So we're not putting plant in there. The plant will be in a separate energy center. We want to use this building to the maximum. But we've put a huge emphasis on quality, 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 and the design aesthetic. I've realized I'm the program sponsor of this project, and I've realized not only am I the client, but I'm also the keeper of the intangible. I've got to make sure that that atmosphere that everyone is so wowed by, that we retain that. Sustainability is a huge challenge, which I've already mentioned. Right from the beginning, because this is a long-term, big, hairy, complex, complicated project, we've done a huge amount of community engagement, both within Trinity and externally. And it's absolutely, yes, it's at Trinity, but this is a national, and if not an international project of great importance. So just to give you your bearings again, we're over here on the other side of the Liffey. We're about a 15-minute walk away. Here is the long room. I would just ask you, just notice that little temple there. I'll come back to that. Oops. Might be easier if I do this. So here's the old library. And I'm going to talk you through the new visitor journey. There won't be a lot different externally, but the new entrance will be a very subtle pavilion here. So we're getting rid of all that basically mess there. And it's a new pavilion. Now, not only did we consult a lot with all the heritage organizations when we were developing this, obviously the Georgian Society, the historic societies, and so on. But what I discovered is the Berkeley Library, which is a high point of modernism, has as many supporters as the 18th century library, and so we dealt with Icamos and Docomomo and so on, because we will make interventions into the 20th century protected structure as well as the 18th century protected structure. So our visitors already have time tickets, and it's a one-way system. We'll enter through this subtle pavilion. Then the whole of that piazza is empty. We've already started. And that will be the visitor center, the retail, the orientation space, the rotating display, and so on. And we're flipping the order of our visitors. So they're going to start off in the long room, because we know at the moment that the Book of Kells can be, that part of it is a bit of an anticlimax. So our visitors will come into the long room on the first floor, go the whole length. Then there's a fantastic staircase that nobody sees, that we're bringing into play. And the idea is, oh, I'm in a university, I'm in a library, that's why I've come to see the Book of Kells. And then they will come down the whole of this side is the exhibition culminating in the Book of Kells, and then back out on a one-way system out here. On the other side, on what's called Library Square, where the flash mob was a couple of days ago, on the other side on the ground floor, that's the whole length will be the new Research Collection Study Center. So the new exhibition, we've already, we've got the themes. It's the biography of the book, it's the biography of the Book of Kells. As I say, it's putting it into an international context. There will be 3 different speeds. So we know that our visitors, a lot of them come from the cruise ships and so on, who want a short visit. You'll have the same content, but you can walk through quickly. And then for what's known as the culturally curious, which I'm sure everyone here is, there's much deeper information available. The other thing is that we had a group, we got our library experts and working with professors of history of art and theology. We've got all the content for this, and we tried it out. So there's a MOOC, there's a massive open online course on the Book of Kells, which I'd highly recommend to you. And we tried out all the themes, and got about 20,000 responses. So that has all informed the exhibition, the new exhibition. And then, then you've come to see the Book of Kells. We're going to show you every single leaf of the Book of Kells. And I would just point out that in the middle there is the only woman in the Book of Kells. There's a Madonna and Child. We put her on at Christmas. Then on the other side, this CGI doesn't do it justice. This is the Research Collection Study Center. So we're a research-intensive university. This will have environmental controls. I will share with you that there are days in the summer we cannot issue currently medieval manuscripts because of the conditions. So we might have an international scholar who's come to see something, and it's too dry for us to show it. But equally important, we're a research-intensive university. Every fourth-year student has to do a research project. I contest that we're sitting on a gold mine of research projects, and we want our students to be able to have access safely and securely to primary resource material. And if you see a student working with, say, a Samuel Beckett typescript, they are just so inspired. And of course, everyone is reinventing their historic libraries. Trinity, we had our estates strategy was we had some international consultants. And it was very interesting. One of their comments was that in their experience across the world, university campuses, the buildings that reinvent themselves the most and change the most are libraries. So there are some other features. That's the old library redevelopment project, but we're actually doing 3 building projects simultaneously because we're committed to continuity of access during the construction period. We're going to be closed for 3 years, and I don't feel it's acceptable for our community not to be able to have access to all the material. Therefore, we are currently creating an alternative study space, and all the 750,000 items, apart from when they're actually in transit, will be available to readers. We also are committed to the continuity of income. And therefore, we are creating an alternative Book of Kells exhibition. Do you remember that little temple? That is happening as we speak. And we're also creating an alternative interim immersive display and retail, and there's a possibility that after the 3 years, that might travel. Everyone's always interested in money. So this is a 90 million euro project. And there are three interrelated components to the funding. I call it the virtuous circle of funding. The first one is philanthropy. This project coincided with the first ever capital campaign of a university in Ireland. And when I first pitched the library, it was against 44 other projects. And eventually there are 4 projects that were part of our capital campaign, of which, so there's the Cancer Institute, there is the library. Then, as people start to support us, this then helped us with the case to government. We've made the case that this is a national cultural treasure. And after a lot of work, I'm extremely delighted to say that the government, under the Department of Heritage, is supporting us to the tune of €25 million, huge amount of money, and it is called out in the National Development Plan. Interestingly, it's called out particularly around skills and heritage skills. And the third element is Trinity College ourselves, so we are contributing a lot ourselves. And we've started. We have already completed the new Book of Kells case. We couldn't wait 5 years. And so please come and see this. We have on display, we do rotate the opening, and in honor of yourselves, we have put on the opening of St. Matthew, which is the most phenomenal carpet page. So there's an 8-circle cross, and there's a full-page Christ. It won't be on display for decades again, and we put it on for yourselves, so please come and see it. The case itself, this is Goppian. I don't know if you know them. They did the Book of the Mona Lisa, the British Crown Jewels, the Dead Sea Scrolls. Phenomenal company. This wonderful combination of very, very, very intelligent engineering. This is such a finely tuned machine, which you cannot see. And then the aesthetics. And one of the challenges we had here was we were designing a case for an exhibition that we hadn't even designed yet. But the idea was that we wanted the Book of Kells to float. And the other benefit of this, we now have a calling card. So every time I'm giving a tour, or we're giving tours to potential philanthropists, we take them here and we say, this is the design aesthetic, this is the quality of what we're going to do for the whole of the building. We've done endless opening up works. If you've done conservation work, you do not know what you're going to find. And so we've done geological boreholes, we've done archaeological tests, we've opened up a lot of the woodwork, and we've emptied a basement and are about to create an alternative interim reading room. People are intrigued about how we're going to move the 750,000 volumes. We've done all the pilots now, and so we've got teams who are we're cleaning the books as we remove them. We're putting RFID tags in, radio frequency identification tags, and one of the issues also was that we needed to catalog. A benefit of the pandemic was that we had an 1872 catalog for 250,000 of our volumes, which was all paper-based. And 40 years ago, a professor of computer science started to put it onto a database, and it was always on the to-do list to finish it. Well, we needed to finish it in order to move the books. When lockdown happened, obviously everyone was home, so we got 50 people working from home, not necessarily catalogers. We were ferrying around spreadsheets by taxi. We finished it. So we finished something that was started 40 years ago, and very pleasingly, the research usage of these collections is already going up. Here's the Alternative Book of Kells exhibition on the left-hand side, that little temple. It's the printing house. It was where the original Trinity College Dublin printing press was. I've got my eye on it afterwards. But this is around the legacy, because we will have conserved the third oldest, another protected structure, the third oldest building on Trinity's campus, and give it back after this project. And there'll be an immersive audiovisual exhibition and retail. And also, we had a whole awareness campaign, particularly to the internal community. My Director of Public Affairs and Communications says, if you get your internal comms right, your external comms will follow. Because obviously this is going to be very disruptive. And so we had a whole stakeholder engagement. We've got films and blogs and tweets and so on. But critical to this, actually, The Guardian, the international reach of The Guardian really did make a powerful effect. And then we've done the New York Times, and the Sunday Times is coming out this week. And then the other thing is, we have done a trailer for a documentary throughout the 5 or 6 years of the project, and that's in with the broadcasting authorities at the moment. One way or another, we will do a documentary about this. So that's the longest part of the talk. That's the old library redevelopment project. In parallel and completely intertwined is we also started at the same time the Virtual Trinity Library. Now, most of you have probably got your own digital libraries. So this is just how we went about it. The aims, we wanted to create a new digital entity, a new research entity that was available to the world, and to make all the unique and distinct collections that we have eventually accessible to anyone, school child, scholar, with an internet connection and an energy source. And how we went about it, there were a whole slew of policies and prioritizations. But basically, we put all of our collections into 9 very digestible themes, because this was also part of the philanthropy. And critically, each of them has a distinguished academic lead. So this is absolutely embedded in the academic enterprise. Sometimes we're digitizing a medieval manuscript as it is about to be taught on a master's degree in medieval studies. So the 9 themes: Europe's diverse heritage, Ireland's medieval culture, obviously given our medieval manuscripts, Ireland's creative legacy and literary heritage, so we've got Oscar Wilde and Brendan Kennelly. We've got a lot of religious and political material, Trinity's scholarly contribution to the world. Do you remember I showed you that William Rowan Hamilton? He discovered quaternions, and a professor of astrophysics told me that when he was showing around one of the astronauts, I think it was either Buzz Aldrin or Neil Armstrong, he stopped in front of that bust and said, "Oh, that's the man who got me back from the moon." So that's Trinity's scholarly contribution to the world. Then we have global culture, a lot of papyri and so on, Ireland's experiments, and a phenomenal collection of children's literature, so much so we have the only professor of children's literature, I think, in the world, and we have a master's degree in children's literature, which is predicated on these collections. And then the way we're going about it, for each of those themes, we're making a whole program, and the funding is around conserving as a starting point, cataloging, curating, doing those really fundamental things that often are still outstanding. The obvious one is digitizing, but we're taking the opportunity to do advanced technology, whether that's artificial intelligence, geospatial layering, or hyperspectral imaging. Absolutely critical, we want to catalyze primary research. When we were developing the strategy for the library, the Dean of Research challenged me, how does the library catalyze research? Never mind about your services, how do you catalyze research? So this is one of the ways that we are responding to that challenge. Disseminating it to all. And then I feel very strongly that, when we then connect with all of your digital libraries, all the aggregators like the Europeana, like the the Digital Public Library of America, these are huge new resources. So to give you an example, Ireland's literary heritage, Sam Beckett, he's an alum of Trinity, a Nobel Prize winner. We have the greatest collection of his correspondence in the world, and we're making all of that over time. We'll make that available. Oscar Wilde, I love this, your loving papa, Oscar Wilde. and carte de visite. We've got about 30 objects. We put them all on display. Interestingly enough, they're the only objects in Ireland about Oscar Wilde. The Egyptian Books of the Dead is World Heritage. They are meters long. The conservation is hair-raising. This is one where we will work in collaboration. This is not an area of our expertise, but they need conserving, they need researching. We're already talking with, for example, the British Museum about these. And then in terms of the European heritage, as you enter the long room, there is what's known as the Fargel. Forgive my non-Dutch pronunciation. But this is the most incredible pan-European library that was bought for Trinity in 1802 with huge foresight. And in some ways, we're only now realizing the potential of the people who bid for this. It's a pan-European library that was built up by the Fargel family, who were sort of a political family, and it ranges over many different languages. We very simplistically started with the pretty stuff, so the tulips and wonderful botanical drawings, but now we have a very deep research project underway, working collaboratively with the Royal Library in The Hague. We're contributing to their catalogue and so on. And what we're finding is, even though this is printed material, some of the material is the only copy in the world. The medieval culture, we digitized the Book of Durrow, which is 100 years older than the Book of Kells. And even before we did advanced technology, I just love this. If you can go online and see this. Can you see here? When we digitized it, you could see, you just blow it up a little bit, you can see the point of the compass where the scribe made the circle 1,500 years ago, which nobody had seen before. And then, as I say, and forgive me, I realize that these examples, they're all European and North American, but everyone, the aggregators of all these digital libraries, we're only just starting to realize the potential of these in terms of text mining and data mining. And as new tools and automated tools come on stream, I think there's a whole literally brave new world of research potential that we want to be part of. And the advanced technology, the pigment analysis was X-ray fluorescence. And then we're leaders in transcribers, which is handwritten text recognition using artificial intelligence. And as with the old library redevelopment project, I said the treasury was like a calling card. Our calling card for the Virtual Trinity Library was this book, The Director's Choice. It's a super series. I think this is about the 50th one. Started with the Albertina in Vienna. And it's a set format, 37 gorgeous images, 250 words about each of the images. And I called on my colleagues in the library to nominate their choices. And then, so it's quite a nice eclectic mix, plus also it's very strategic. Each one of those 9 themes is illustrated. It's a nice giveaway. And then, to come on to the digital heritage, we had so many extra, more than 37, that we did a director's choice uncut online. And there we've embedded videos of staff saying why they so nominated this idea and different links and so on. So those are the 2 projects that we're doing. Simultaneously, they're very, very intertwined. Say on the philanthropy, somebody who we approach about the capital project, maybe they're not interested in that. They're very interested on the Virtual Trinity Library. They're interested in our collections. We're talking about, it's bringing in potential discussions about donations, some of which won't come through for 40 or 50 years. This is the long-termism. But the two are intimately intertwined. And my first observation is I think these two projects, they sort of they're riding the zeitgeist of the pandemic. On the one hand, there was the accelerated digital. You know, we all went online, we all were buying much more electronic material and so on, and we all zoomed and accelerated online. On the other hand, the importance of the experiential and the sensory and the physical just became even more important. Why have 2,000 people come to IFLA rather than having an online conference? We're social animals, and if you watch people's visceral and emotional response when they go in the long room, it's so important. And the two are intimately entwined, but I think there is something about these two projects that summarize that zeitgeist. And in terms of space, when the university shut, then the library was the first area to reopen, Trinity. And an academic said to me, it was so good for morale. When the library's open, the university is open. So there was that sense of reappreciation of what a library was. And the first day we reopened, we did it for 50 postgraduates. That's all we could get in. And at the end of that day, the first day, one of the postgrads wrote to me and said, I got more done in 3 hours than in 3 months working at home. So we know that libraries are safe spaces, that they've got good Wi-Fi, that they're conducive. But it really, really reinforced that. And then in terms of the undergraduates, we've got an explosion of mental health issues, as I'm sure most of you have. There are now 50 mental health counselors at Trinity. And underlying mental health problems have just burgeoned. And one of the things that I was very struck by our head of counseling said was that the undergrads, they were having these Zoom calls. And the undergrads, they wouldn't even look the counselor in the eye. They were so isolated. And so the counselors were saying, go into the library. Go into the library, at least you'll have some interaction. And I've now come to think of the library actually as a non-medical support. The other thing about spaces and these projects is we're contributing to the economic society, the economics of society. In preparing this talk, I was thinking, particularly during the pandemic, what we'd done. Ironically, we made huge progress. There were all sorts of factors, but we made huge progress. And also, all this funding, most of it, is going back into the Irish economy. So, the Old Library Redevelopment Project, there are 3 project managers paid for out of this 90 million. Everything else goes back into the economy. It's paying for architects, quantity surveyors, geologists, conservators. It's all going back. I feel very strongly, I mean, I come for free. I can see Laura Shanahan and my other colleagues here. This is our day job. And it's also a major change program, and I feel very strongly, change programs you do yourself. This is our day job. So all of that, we are contributing all that back to the Irish economy. And then the Virtual Trinity Library, during the pandemic, before, now there's all this skill staffing shortages, but you know when everyone was so worried about people losing their jobs? We created 20 new posts. They're contracts, but they were good posts. Project managers, digital imagers, conservators, research fellows. And that all went back, apart from some equipment, everything has gone back into the economy. And my fourth point, then, I would say, is that where this interplay between the digital and heritage and how libraries can play their role in society, more than even the soft power of cultural diplomacy, I think we can help with very difficult issues. And I mentioned that Ireland is in a decade of commemoration. So this is the creation of the state, not celebration, commemoration. And it started with 1914, which was the end of the First World War. Then there was 1916, which was the Easter Uprising. And now we're into 1922, which is a very, very difficult period to commemorate. And you can see I'm even being careful how I'm choosing my words. And I'm trying to understand about it, and a professor at Trinity said to me, well, Helen, how do you commemorate grandparent murdering grandparent? This is really difficult territory. And there is the most inspirational project. I said that the archives were blown up about a kilometre from here, along the quays. On the 30th of June, 1922, the archives, the memory of Ireland was blown up. 700-year-old vellum records, gone. It is so, I mean, this whole period is very painful, it's violent, it's very, very complex. And a brilliant history professor of Trinity called Peter Crooks, he suggested that as a way of commemorating this event was to try and create a virtual version of the destroyed archives. Because a lot, even though there's sort of 19th century, a lot of it was handwritten, because of bureaucracy, a lot of it, there are other copies. And so a collaborative project started with the National Archives in London, the Public Record Office of Northern Ireland, the National Archives here, and the vision is to find the archive around the world, digitize it, and make it available as a legacy project. And we all said to, I mean, it was an absolute gift, frankly, to the government's commemoration committee, and it has been supported by, last month, during the week of the 30th of June, it was launched by the Taoiseach, and there is now a virtual record treasury. So you can, there's a virtual treasury. You can go in to the building, you can go down a corridor, you can go down to a shelf, you can open a box, and you can find digitized images of the records that were, copies of the records that were destroyed in 1922. It is an absolutely inspirational project. And of course, it will live on. So this is the legacy, and also particularly on the digital preservation side. I would highly, highly recommend this to you. But on a lighter note, to finish, some of you, I used this once in a TED talk, and so forgive me if you've seen this already, but some of you may suggest that the Jedi archive, maybe, was predicated on the old library. Now, I'm gracious enough to give Lucas acknowledgement. He has never acknowledged this. But maybe one of the things that we can do in libraries is to engage in popular culture as well. If you have Apple TV, the Asimov Foundation is out at the moment. You may just recognize the library in the backdrop. And then 65 million people have watched Normal People, which I just think the Berkeley Library looks fantastic, never mind about Paul Mescal. And I will share with you, ladies and gentlemen, that this has done more for our international recruitment than the whole of our global engagement strategy. So here are just 3 links for you. The strategy, basically, we're about halfway through a 15-year strategy, and that's the first link. The second one is there's a lot of more information about the Old Library Redevelopment Project on the second link. And on the third link, that includes all the digital collections we've done so far, And also, as Mary Robinson referenced yesterday, we launched the Virtual Trinity Library with a conversation with Vartan Gregorian, who was the president of the Carnegie Corporation of New York, an absolutely inspirational man, an inspirational life history, and a huge supporter. He supported our medieval manuscripts projects. And lots of people who aren't anything to do with libraries have told me that they have gone back and watched that conversation for inspiration during the dark days of the pandemic. And everyone takes away something different. And the one thing the thing that always resonates with me was that he talks about librarians being humanitarians of the world. So to you, humanitarians of the world, thank you very much for your patience in listening to me. Thank you.
Well, this was amazing. It was fantastic. Thank you so much, Helen, for your insight and your inspiration. And I am so impressed, actually, of all what you are doing, but the way how you manage to stand on the shoulders on history, stand on history, and then working on building the library into the future. It is fantastic. And you said you are reusing the buildings, and actually reuse is a core task for all libraries, reusing everything, our collections and so on. And now you're giving this accessibility to all of us. That's great. So thank you so much. And thank you all for attending this session. We are all working in the same field. I am sure you have listened very carefully to Helen's speech, and I'm sure you take something with you back home you can use in your daily work, some inspiration, and even this is huge library, some amazing projects. There are things we all can use. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you very much, Helen. And to all of you, enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you for attending. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, I took a stroll on the old long walk of the day. I met a little girl and we stopped to talk on a fine soft day.